4:17 a.m., Beijing time, a pulse echoed from beneath the Indian Ocean floor. Not a whale, not a submarine. A signal, repeating once every second. 37.5 kilohertz, the exact frequency of a flight recorder's heartbeat. For nearly a decade, that number had been a ghost, until now. A Chinese deep-sea research vessel, part of a mineral mapping expedition in the southeastern Indian Ocean, had detected something unusual, a consistent acoustic pattern rising from a trench 4,000 meters below. The crew recorded, time-stamped, and replayed the sound. Every interval was perfect, mechanical, intentional. Could a black box still be transmitting after 11 years? Or had something beneath the seabed begun to mimic one? Satellite relays carried fragments of the detection back to shore, triggering an alert inside a Beijing Oceanographic Control Center. Analysts compared the signal's waveform against archived black box pinger signatures, and the match rate exceeded 92%. For the first time since 2017, the phrase possible MH370 correlation appeared in an internal memo. Within hours, China's Ministry of Transport quietly contacted Malaysia. By dawn, international flight tracking forums were ablaze with speculation. Had the ocean just spoken again? That coordinate, the same area once dismissed, the so-called Haidian sector, just north of where a patrol ship named Haishun 01 had heard the same frequency in 2014. A perfect echo, separated by 11 silent years. If the sound is real, it means something under that ocean floor has never stopped calling. It began on an ordinary night. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls, lifted into the sky, bound for Beijing. For 38 minutes, the flight was textbook. Calm weather, smooth climb. Then, over the dark waters of the South China Sea, it vanished. The plane's transponder, its digital identity, went silent. Civilian radar lost it completely. But military radar saw something else. A large aircraft, same radar cross-section, heading the wrong way. No radio contact, no distress call, just a silent turn, as if guided by an invisible hand. It crossed the peninsula, the Straits of Malacca, and faded into darkness over the Andaman Sea. Then, nothing. Days turned into weeks. Search zones expanded, then collapsed, as conflicting reports flooded in. Satellite handshakes, faint digital exchanges between the jet and an orbiting Inmarsat satellite became the only breadcrumbs. Those signals pointed south, deep into the Indian Ocean. An unthinkable place, thousands of kilometers from any land. And yet, it was there the world would look. For years, ships dragged sonar arrays through underwater canyons. They mapped 120,000 square kilometers of seabed. They found mountains, trenches, shadows, but not the plane. By 2017, the search was declared over. Governments withdrew. Families were told closure would have to come without answers, but closure never came. Because beneath those same waters, a ghost pulse had been recorded, once in April 2014, by a Chinese patrol ship called Haishun 01, a pulse at 37.5 kilohertz, the exact frequency that now, 11 years later, has returned. Same pattern, same coordinates, different decade. So, was the Chinese ship right all along? Did the black box keep whispering from under the silt, waiting for someone to listen? In early 2025, China officially notified the International Civil Aviation Organization of its new findings. Malaysia responded within hours, and on March 10th, the world learned the truth. The search for MH370 had been resumed. When China resumed deep-sea exploration in early 2025, few noticed the region it chose, a stretch of seabed once dismissed as exhausted. But this mission wasn't about minerals anymore. It was about echoes. The ship, part of a joint ocean mapping program, carried new equipment, an array far more advanced than the handheld hydrophone used by Haishun 01 in 2014. This time, engineers deployed a synthetic aperture sonar, a system capable of scanning the ocean floor in 3 dimensions and listening for resonant anomalies far below the sediment. Each pulse penetrated the silt, returning a signal map that could detect objects smaller than a car lying kilometers deep. Among the returns was one pattern that stood out, a harmonic oscillation fixed at 37.5 kilohertz. Perfectly uniform, perfectly timed. To the untrained ear, it's just a tone. To investigators, it's a signature, the heartbeat of a flight recorder. The signal did not originate from open water, but from beneath a thin layer of seabed sediment, almost as if something metallic had settled there years ago, slowly buried by the ocean's shifting floor. Scientists cross-checked the reading with environmental data. There were no known marine species producing sound in that frequency range. No submarine maneuvers recorded, no geological events active, and the position? Within 20 kilometers of the Haishun 01 detection point from April 2014. Coincidence or confirmation? When the waveform was compared against archived black box pinger data from Boeing 777 recorders, the match reached 94.6%. The statistical odds of random interference mimicking that pattern? Less than 0.01%. Still, science requires restraint. An acoustic signature is evidence, not proof. But it was enough to restart the search. To investigate, China and Malaysia agreed to involve a private contractor, Ocean Infinity. Their armada of autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, would map the coordinates in a tight grid, searching for man-made contours beneath the silt. Each AUV carries multi-beam sonar, magnetometers, and high-resolution cameras, feeding terabytes of data back to the surface. Unlike older systems tethered by cables, these robotic scouts dive freely, gliding through trenches no human diver could survive. Every dive is a conversation between machine and ocean. If the black box is there, its silence won't last forever. Because for the first time since 2014, humanity isn't just listening to the sea, it's listening inside it. Before the signal returned, there was only silence. A silence that stretched for 11 years. Across 239 families, across 4 continents, across an ocean that never stopped moving. Every March they gather here, Kuala Lumpur, Beijing, Sydney, Paris, small circles of light under an unchanging sky. They hold candles, they speak to the waves, and they listen for an answer that never came. In the years since 2014, technology changed. Satellites advanced, drones learned to think. But for the families of Flight 370, time stood still. Each dawn began the same way, by checking the ocean. They scroll through maritime trackers, live AIS feeds, weather buoys, even deep-sea project logs. They know ship names, coordinates, acoustic frequencies. Ordinary people turned data hunters, because data is the only thing that still listens back. A mother in Beijing has kept the same phone alarm for 11 years, 4:41 a.m., the last time her son's message was delivered. She says she never turns it off, in case it ever rings again. A father in Kuala Lumpur still wears his airline guest tag from that night. He doesn't keep it for proof, he keeps it for weight. When news broke of the new signal, 37.5 kilohertz buried beneath the seabed, hope didn't explode. It trembled. Because hope, after this long, becomes fragile. You don't shout it, you whisper it, just in case the ocean's listening. Across time zones, group chats that had been dormant for years lit up again. Did you see it? Could it be real this time? Don't get your hopes up. In Beijing's Oceanographic Control Center, the analyst who caught the anomaly, Li Wen, was the same age now as some of the passengers' children. He had grown up with their faces on news broadcasts, and when he isolated that clean 37.5 kilohertz pattern in early 2025, he said it felt like a breath underwater. He didn't call it evidence. He called it a reply. Meanwhile, half a world away in Perth, an Ocean Infinity engineer packed for departure. He sealed his workstation crate with tape, wrote 3 numbers across the lid, 370. He didn't say the words out loud. Superstition runs deep at sea. When science returns to the field of grief, precision becomes ritual. You calibrate, not just instruments, but conscience. Every sonar ping is a heartbeat. Every false positive, a funeral repeated. Before each dive, the lead technician calls a quiet roll, time, depth, grid, vessel ID, and ends with the same line, for the 239. The families watch remotely. A live feed shows red dots crawling across a digital ocean. Every time a sub surfaces, they wait for a number, a depth, a temperature, a clue. Some record the sound of the ocean streams themselves, looping it over and over, hoping to hear something new between the waves. To the world, this is a data operation. To them, it's communion. Because when technology meets loss, the boundary between science and prayer begins to blur. At the Kuala Lumpur Memorial, a plaque bears one sentence: "The sea remembers everything." And if that's true, then the sea is remembering now. Somewhere beneath 4 kilometers of water, a voice still answers. The moment the new signal was confirmed, 2 questions surfaced like twin shadows. Is it real? And if it is, why now? 11 years apart, same coordinates, same frequency. Coincidence or connection? In Beijing, acoustic experts point to the match rate, over 94%. They argue the probability of random interference creating a signal that precise is less than 1 in 10,000. They see order where others hear chaos, but not everyone agrees. In Canberra and London, analysts counter that seabed acoustics can mislead even the best instruments. Pressure zones, temperature layers, mineral nodes, all can bend or reflect sound in ways that mimic intention. One British oceanographer calls it a hall of mirrors underwater. Another says flatly, it's a ghost. Both could be right. Because the ocean is not a vacuum. It is alive with sound. Every whale call, every quake, every creaking ridge adds another voice to the choir. To isolate one steady tone in that chaos is both science and luck. And yet, 37.5 kilohertz is not a random number. It's the international standard for cockpit voice and flight data recorders. Every second, a pulse. Every pulse, a promise. If you find me, you'll know why. When powered, that beacon emits its tone for roughly 30 days before its battery dies. 30 days, not 11 years. So if the signal detected in 2025 really came from MH370's recorders, something is wrong with our understanding of time. Could a chemical anomaly have preserved the battery? Could silt pressure create a piezoelectric resonance, echoing the same frequency? Or could the signal have been reawakened, not by power, but by impact? One model suggests tectonic micromovements might have disturbed wreckage long buried under the sediment, briefly reactivating residual circuitry or resonance chambers. In other words, the black box might have spoken again, not because it lived, but because the ocean moved. If true, that would mean MH370 rests exactly where the first Chinese detection occurred, and that the sea itself has just pointed the way back. But not all theories are acoustic. Some see this new discovery as political timing. China announcing it first, before the multinational verification, stirred echoes of 2014, when Haisun 01's report bypassed the Australian Coordination Center. Back then, critics accused Beijing of racing to claim a lead for domestic reassurance. 154 of the passengers were Chinese nationals. Could history be repeating itself? Aviation forums lit up overnight. Was this genuine science or strategic theater? One thread reads, "If the signal's real, why hasn't anyone else confirmed it?" Another counters, "Because they're not listening where it came from." There's also a third theory, one that refuses to die, that the 37.5 kilohertz signal is not new, but old data, resurfaced, reprocessed, repackaged. An echo not from the deep, but from the archives. A misfiled ping resurrected by politics. But if that were true, the physical readings from the 2025 expedition, the live acoustic energy profile, the phase shift curves, the propagation velocity through sediment, could not exist. They do. They were verified by independent hydrophones aboard 2 other ships. So the signal is real. The only question left is what it belongs to. Malaysia's Transport Ministry officially confirmed a new collaborative operation, a triangulated search grid centered on the Chinese coordinates. Ocean Infinity's fleet will scan a 25,000 square kilometer area with high-definition synthetic sonar. The mission's mandate: locate any metallic structure larger than 10 meters buried beneath sediment. But behind the technical briefings, skepticism persists. What if it isn't a plane? What if it's another relic? A shipwreck, a sensor pod, a military discard, even an acoustic decoy? The ocean floor is a museum of secrets. And yet, the frequency never lies. For those who believe, this is not coincidence. It's continuity. A signal too deliberate, too clean, too stubborn to ignore. If the ocean can preserve a heartbeat for 11 years, then perhaps it can also preserve a confession. And if that confession belongs to MH370, then the mystery of its disappearance may not be the only one buried there, because beneath the ocean's silence, something else is moving. For months, the sound had haunted the data streams. A whisper at 37.5 kilohertz, neither proof nor illusion. But the ocean doesn't lie. It only delays its answers. This time, the world came prepared. Ocean Infinity's armada of autonomous underwater vehicles, 11 in total, fanned out in precision grids. Each AUV carried synthetic aperture sonar, magnetometers, optical sensors, and laser altimeters capable of imaging through layers of sediment. For the first time, the search would see not just on the seabed, but underneath it. Every dive produced terabytes of sound maps. Every map, a translation of pressure, echo, and silence. The first weeks showed nothing unusual: dunes, ridges, basalt slopes, the same seafloor geology that had buried hopes for a decade. Until Dive 27. At 4,000 meters down, the sonar returned something no algorithm could classify. Not a mountain, not a rockfall, a geometry, a rectangular formation, 12 meters long, 3 meters high, its edges unnaturally clean, its surface density metallic. For a moment, the control room froze. The sea had drawn a shape. The coordinates matched the 2025 acoustic signal point, within 30 meters. Even the depth aligned, 4,013 meters. A UV-7 looped back. It sent another scan from a different angle. This time, the sonar picked up something else. Faint, repeating echoes in harmonic sequence. Not random noise, reflections from within metal. Analysis of resonance spectra showed an internal cavity roughly the size of a flight recorder casing. The amplitude pattern, 6 milliseconds of delay, matched the thickness of aircraft-grade aluminum alloy. And inside that echo, almost lost in static, was a single pulse, 37.5 kilohertz. It wasn't just the ocean remembering, it was answering. Teams double-checked their instruments, they recalibrated sensors, they repeated the scan at a higher resolution. The object remained unmovable, consistent, geometric. Its outline measured nearly identical to a Boeing 777 cockpit voice recorder housing. But the surrounding field complicated the story. Within a 50-meter radius, sonar showed scattered fragments, irregular, curved, hollow structures, some as large as 6 meters across. To the algorithm, they resembled torn fuselage. To the human eye, they looked like the aftermath of violence. The pieces formed no complete aircraft. Instead, they were spread like confetti along a descending trench wall, as if the wreck had struck its speed, shattered, and rolled down into darkness. A hydrodynamic analysis showed that if the plane had entered the ocean at a steep angle, currents could have carried lighter sections upward, leaving the denser flight recorders to sink into the trench, exactly where the object now lay. The ocean had not erased everything. It had preserved just enough. Still, confirmation required visual proof. No camera had ever reached this depth before in that sector. Ocean Infinity prepared a remotely operated vehicle, ROV Argus 9, fitted with high-lumen floodlights and pressure cameras rated to 6,000 meters. When it descended, hours passed in silence. Only the hum of thrusters and the slow heartbeat of telemetry filled the control room. At 3:41 local time, the feed stabilized, silt drifted like snow. And then, a flicker of orange metal emerged from the gloom. Orange, the color of flight recorders, the color of answers. The image cut out seconds later, transmission loss, possibly due to interference or structural shielding. When the feed returned, the object was obscured again by stirred sediment. Investigators debated whether to risk a retrieval dive. The currents were rising, the trench wall unstable. The decision was delayed. For now, only data, no recovery. But the implications were already spreading beyond the search grid. Governments responded cautiously. Officially, it was an unverified anomaly consistent with flight debris. Unofficially, analysts admitted it was the strongest lead since 2014. 11 years after disappearance, a new image had joined the record. Not of a plane in the sky, but of a shadow beneath the sea. And that shadow carried a question. If this is truly MH370, why has the ocean guarded it for so long? Sometimes mysteries don't end with discovery. They only deepen. Because finding the wreck may not reveal what happened. It may reveal what we've been unwilling to see. And when that announcement comes, it may change everything we thought we knew about the night MH370 disappeared, and about the limits of what the ocean can hide. If what lies 4,000 meters beneath the Indian Ocean is truly part of MH370, then the ocean has finally spoken. But what it's saying may be far larger than one aircraft. The discovery triggered a chain reaction. Data packets from the 2025 expedition spread to labs and governments within hours. Modelers cross-referenced every coordinate, every echo, every metallic reflection. Suddenly, 11 years of uncertainty condensed into a single set of numbers: 25 degrees south, 101 degrees east, depth 4,013 meters. Simple numbers, but they carry weight: political, scientific, human. For governments, the implications were logistical. If the wreck is confirmed, international treaties demand a full joint recovery. Malaysia, China, Australia, France. That means money, jurisdiction, responsibility. The same nations that once called the search unsolvable now face a moral test. Do they return to the water or let the ocean keep its dead? For aviation, the discovery is both vindication and indictment. It proves the technology to find MH370 existed all along, just beyond reach, just underfunded, just ignored. The failure was never only mechanical, it was human. In the 11 years since MH370 vanished, new regulations have transformed the skies: real-time tracking, longer-lived beacons, deployable recorders that float to the surface. Yet somehow, even with all that progress, this plane, and its truth, remained below the radar. For the families, the new evidence is a wound reopening, and a light finally visible through it. If this is the wreck, then every unanswered question becomes urgent again. Why did the flight change course? Was it mechanical, intentional, hijacked? Did anyone survive the descent? And above all, why has it taken 11 years to listen in the right place? Because sometimes truth doesn't vanish. It sinks and waits. If confirmed, the find will force a rewriting of aviation's most haunting chapter. Every assumption about where, how, and why may shift. The Inmarsat data, long treated as gospel, could be flawed. The southern arcs misaligned. The algorithms that guided the first search revealed to be built on sand. And that raises a new question, whispered inside control rooms and policy briefings alike. If we were wrong about the data, what else might we be wrong about? Was MH370 a failure of instruments, or of interpretation, a technological mystery, or a human blind spot? And if one signal can echo across 11 years, how many others are still whispering beneath the noise? Each discovery creates a choice: to explain or to deny, to act or to archive. The ocean has given back a voice, but will anyone listen this time? Maybe the greater mystery isn't where Flight 370 is, but how it disappeared in the first place. Not into the sea, but into bureaucracy, into disbelief, into the static between nations. If the wreckage is real, it will not just rewrite aviation history. It will expose a truth about us, our dependence on systems we don't fully understand. our faith in data that sometimes lies, and our reluctance to face what deep water remembers. The sea keeps its own archives, and one by one, it is opening them. Until it does, the question remains, what else is still calling from beneath the waves?